Okay, so this is going to be part 2 video of the 6th grade hand sewing project, which is the bath kit, terry towel bath kit. Okay, so far what we've done on the first one is we got our button put onto our project. Now, it's going to be a little hard for me to show you this. Okay, what you need to do now is you have to kind of lay this out on the table so that you can figure out what you're doing. But when it's finished, you want to make sure when you have it all finished and then folded up that of course your button shows up on the top. So you want to organize the towel so that the button's kind of down, and then you're going to take the other end and you're going to fold it up by about a third. Okay, about a third. And when you do that, you might have to kind of keep checking it to see if you fold over the top, do you have about a third? It doesn't have to be exactly exact, but you want it pretty close. You want to have plenty of room for some pockets here so you can put stuff in there. And I would say right there is about a third. Okay, everything's divided into thirds. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this in place with one of my straight pins. Okay, so I'm going to go to the side that I'm going to start on, and I'm going to put my pin in place just like I do anytime I'm securing my pin down. And you want to make sure that your edges are pretty close and aligned. Okay, all right. Now, the stitch that I'm going to use to sew up both sides of this project on the edges is called a whip stitch. Okay, it's called a whip stitch. And how we start our whip stitch, let me get myself organized here just a second where I think you'll be able to see things better. Okay, how you do your whip stitch, I think that's going. Okay, so what I want to do, I'm going to start on the side that I've pinned. And I'm going to start at what's going to be the bottom of our project, where the fold is. And I am going to put my needle inside, okay? And then when I pull it all the way till it hits that knot, and I should say you want to have a little bit extra long thread, longer than you probably had for your button, because a whip stitch does take quite a bit of thread. So anyway, I've put that in there and I've pulled it until the knot is stopping it. Okay. Now this is called a whip stitch because you're going to keep whipping around this edge. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start. Okay. And what I'm going to do, I've got started over on that end, and I'm going to kind of use, most towels have like a little band where it was woven. There's like usually a thin little band up along the edge of it, and I'm going to kind of use that as my guide. And I'm going to make a stitch, and then I'm going to put my thread over top. Okay, and I'm going to go around the edge of the fabric, and I'm going to come up again. And the goal here is to keep the stitch length uniform, keep them all the same length, and keep the distance apart for each one of these stitches. Keep those the same also. And each time I just need to pull my thread, and sometimes you kind of have to keep it going nice and straight. Sometimes I have to, right before I pull it really tight, sometimes I have to just straighten it up a little bit with my fingers or with my my needle. So I've come across, I'm going to throw my thread over there a little bit, kind of helps me see where it's going to wind up. Again, I'm going to come up from the back side, pushing through to the front. Okay, and sometimes when you've got extra long thread, it is easy for it to get tangled up. So you have to be careful and you have to be patient. Okay, and once I get it kind of straightened up, I pull it tight. And I just keep going over the edge, and getting it all nice and lined up, nice and straight. Try to keep it all the same. Okay. And this is a hard stitch to make look really nice. You have to have a lot of practice to really keep it all nice and even. And that's one reason why it was so important for you to get the thread that was absolutely going to match your towel color. Now, like I explained on my first video, I'm using a thread that has a lot of contrast with my towel, just so you can kind of see what I'm doing. But each stitch, after each stitch, I'm just kind of straightening up the stitch, make them nice and straight, okay, as best I can. The more uniform they look, the better the whole project's going to turn out, okay? Anyway, so I'm just going to keep doing this. I'm going around the edge, coming up from behind, okay, and pulling it forward. Setting my stitch right before I turn it, tighten it down. Make sure that you're going through both layers of your fabric, okay? Going to go around that edge again. Okay. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to take and do this stitch all the way up through there. All the way up through the side, okay? You're going to have something that looks kind of like this, okay? Except hopefully yours is going to blend in better, maybe be a little bit more even than mine. So you're going to have this whip stitch, and you're going to go all the way up through this side, all the way clear up to here, up to the very top where you have that folded down. Okay, so we're going to pretend that I've already done all the way, whip stitches all the way up through here. When you get up here, you're going to do the same kind of stitch knot that we did to secure our button on the back, okay? You're going to, and you want to try to hide your knot. So you will have stitched all the way up through here. I'll go ahead and put a few in here just to make it look like that's what we've done. Kind of hard to do this in the middle, okay? So I've got whip stitches going along through here. Maybe. There we go. Phew. All right, so we're going to pretend like I've got all these stitches up along the edge here, okay? All right. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and get my needle in between these two layers, just kind of like I did in between my towel and my button at one point, but you're going to get your needle just in between the two layers, okay? And then you're going to be able to take and put your stitch knots in between there where people aren't going to be able to see it very well. Again, you take just a little tiny stitch, okay, just pick up a little bit of the fabric, and then right before this closes all the way down, you're going to put your needle through the loop and you're going to pull it down nice and tight. And just like before, you're going to do about at least 3 of those. Okay, just into the fabric just a little bit. Pull it right before it closes. Put your needle and your thread through that loop and then pull it the rest of the way. Okay, and by doing that, you're going to get your knot hidden down in there. Okay, you have to do that 3 times. Now, once you get this side done, then you're going to make sure that your pocket is all nice and kind of straight. And then you're going to pin this side, the other side, and you're going to do the same thing over here. You're going to hide your knot in here, pull all the way till that knot stops you, and then you're going to loop around the outside of the edge and hide your stitch knots in here. Now, when you're doing this, it's really important that at any time you want to stop when you've got about this much thread still left on your needle. You have to have enough to put a stitch knot in there. So that means if you've run out of thread halfway up through here, you need to hide your stitch knot in between there, okay? Then you'd get some more thread on your needle, and then you would start in that hidden area again and continue on. But if you don't have at least this much thread between your needle, you don't have enough there to do your stitch knots. Okay, so this is all the video for the whip stitch. This has been the whip stitch, and then there's going to be another video that explains the running stitch that we're going to use to separate our pockets.